Hey there, booze buddies. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Spirits, where we share a drink, we tell you a spooky story, and then we rip it apart because booze always shows the truth. Gather around, kids, because today I'm going to tell you the story of the most horrible human being you're ever going to hear about ever. He's horrible. We're going to take a stroll down True Crime Road, and I'm going to tell you this tale of Nathaniel Bar Jonah. So Nathaniel Bar Jonah was born David Paul Brown in none other than Worcester, Massachusetts, kid, in 1957. He was a freaking Boston boy. He was a weirdo from the very go. At the age of 7, like when he was young, he invited a neighbor girl over to his house to like play with the Ouija board in his basement, and he tried to strangle her.
And how old? 7?
7.
Wow. Okay, first of all, why does a 7-year-old have a Ouija board to play with?
It was the 50s.
Obviously not the biggest problem with that story.
Right. I like that that's the thing. You're like, what? How dare he have a Ouija board at 7? His mom kind of didn't pay attention to any of that stuff, and she just kind of let him do whatever he wanted. So by the time he was a senior in high school, he started to do some really weird, stupid shit. He started like putting on a blue jacket and like impersonating an officer, as one does. And several times he abducted children and was caught. Like people, like neighbors would see him or people would see him and they would call the police. And one time he was sentenced to probation for it in the state of Massachusetts. So another time he was in the state of Connecticut. At that point in time, the police officers didn't communicate with each other. So nothing ever really happened. And he just kind of got away with it. So I guess this is a good place in the story to point out the fact that he was a large man. He was about almost 400 pounds. He was a big boy. In 1977, he put on his fancy police coat, aka the blue jacket, snagged a couple of kiddos, handcuffed him, threw one in the trunk, brought him out into the woods, and then literally tried to murder one of them by putting all of his weight on the kid's body. So he was like trying to choke him, but he was really trying to smother him to death with his big old fatty fat body. Like, can you imagine? The kid lived. Okay. The kid didn't die. He wasn't successful in murdering the kid. The kid actually played dead and was able to go to the police and then save his friend and all that jazz. But can you imagine being like, oh no, this is going to be the end of my life and I'm going to be smothered to death by a fat guy's titties? Like, what?
So you're imagining he's like laying on the guy.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I'm imagining he's like sitting his ass right on the kid's like chest or head or something. I don't know.
So he was also strangling, I believe. So that's why I'm envisioning the whole front of the body. So I'm envisioning just like maybe even like a neck roll scenario. He's just smothered in one of those rolls. It's literally like getting murdered by Jabba the Hutt. Right? He's like, order son of Skywalker. It's the best murder weapon ever. Fat old titties. They added that to the new game of Clue. Mrs. White in the woods with the fat old titties. That's how I'm going to kill people, just so we're aware. Oh, damn it. So, after that whole charade, he actually got arrested, finally. He was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 18 to 22 years in prison. While in prison, this large piece of crap started to tell the psychologist in the prison about his fantasies, like his sexual fantasies that involved murder, torture, dissection, and cannibalism. So they decided best to move him to a mental hospital facility. So he was transferred to Bridgewater State Hospital and he was released from there in 1991. Great. Totally reformed, right? No. This fat mofo a month later sees a kid sitting in a car. I think the kid may have been sleeping. I don't know really the whole shenanigans. He opens the door and gets in the car and tries to smother. He sits on the kid. He sits on the kid. Sits on him.
You think he just like didn't see the kid?
He saw the kid and did it on purpose. Like, don't mind if I do. Like, come on. That's amazing. I'm obsessed. It's so bad. It's so bad. But somebody saw this, again, because he's really terrible at being discreet. And also, how do you miss a 400-pound man sitting on a kid in a car?
So do you think there were like little arms like
Do you remember the far side with the lady looking for her dog? That's it.
He stands up and the kid's in his butt cheeks.
Mystery solved. So he was seen, and then obviously he figured out that somebody saw him, so he fled the scene before the police could get there. However, the police recognized his description because it was the officers who had arrested him 15 years ago, like prior with the other kids.
So the description, some fat fuck came and sat on a kid. They're like, we know who that is.
They're like, sitting on a kid, 400 pounds. And they're like, we got this. So they literally went and got him, and he was arrested again. And his excuse for sitting on the kid in the car was, I was just trying to get out of the rain.
Who doesn't just sit on a kid when one's trying to get out of the rain?
So the penalty and the punishment for just trying to get out of the rain by sitting on a child was another 2 years of probation. And it was under the condition that he was to move to Montana, where his mother lived, and never return to the state of Massachusetts again.
I love Massachusetts. Like, you know what? We're giving you 2 years of probation, but you got to get out of here. Like, we just can't anymore with your, fat fuck sitting on the kids.
Get the fuck out of here, kid. You over here sitting on our wee ones over there. Like, get out of here. My mother would smack the shit out of you. Go talk to your mother. She's going to handle it. Don't come back here, you know? So he moves to Montana. Off to Montana he goes. Then gets accused. He somehow started babysitting. Whose bright idea was that? Babysitting.
Did they know he did it in the literal sense?
Nobody knew. His resume was very misleading. They didn't notice the space between the words. Oh, babysitting. So he was babysitting, and he was again accused of assaulting the kid, but he had some excuse and nobody really did anything about it. And then in 1996, a 10-year-old named Zach Ramsey was disappeared on his way to school. The report said, or witnesses said, that they saw a off-white vehicle that almost ran Ramsey over, and later said that he was crying and appeared to be followed by an obese man at the time that he disappeared.
Does he not realize he's just not subtle?
I don't think so. I think he thinks he's very stealthy. So, this kid disappears, right? And they have some clues, but they don't know. So Detective Bill Belushi comes on in. Good old Dick Bill Belushi. So he investigated the babysitting incident, and he was assigned to Ramsey's case. Even though he was handed a list of possible suspects for the area, he skipped over the entire list and literally went right to our good old friend NBJ, because he knew, right? He just knew. He was trying to get a search warrant. He found out that NBJ's mom drove an off-white Toyota Corolla. NBJ had the day off. That day, he was seen standing in an alley very close to where Ramsey was, and then Ramsey did enter that alley. He was also wearing his nice dark blue jacket, his po-po jacket, and was seen in constant proximity to Ramsey. Her dear friend MBJ was stupid enough to actually mention Ramsey, mention the name to somebody a few days before.
Not smart, this guy.
So even after all that, he was still not able to get a search warrant. Annoying, right? So later on that year, MBJ was seen outside an elementary school. For the third time in a few days, he was wearing his jacket, a cap, carrying 2 cans of pepper spray, had a toy gun, and a toy badge. Belushi and the Attorney General charged Barjona with impersonating an officer and carrying a concealed weapon, and a judge finally approved a search warrant for impersonation objects. So they got in Barjona's house and his mother's house. So his new address, because he moved out of his mom's house, which I didn't tell you before, but I'm going to tell you right now. Doesn't matter. So they finally got some sort of search warrant, and they were just basically using his love to dress up like the po-po. Once they went into the house, they found, I'm just going to read this list because it's a list. So they found 2 coats, one dark blue and another with a toy badge in the pocket, a second toy badge, a stun gun, a baseball cap reading security enforcement, and they also found a pulley on the ceiling of his kitchen, 2 albums with cutouts of children, and 2 documents about bondage and autoerotic asphyxia.
Oh, that's not great.
It's like a BDSM shopping list for like before the convention. Don't forget your ceiling hook for your kitchen. Needless to say, 2 days after that, Belushi was able to get a second search warrant for documents and any material that may have been pornographic and inappropriate for grown men to have. So, aside from the albums of cutouts of children that he had, they found several lists of boys' names, later identified as boys from Barjona's youth in good old Mass, including 3 that he assaulted, and there was also 1 entry in a notebook that said Zachary Ramsey, and next to it was the word died. Ugh. They also found 3,500 photographs of children, multiple news clippings about Ramsey's disappearance, an undeveloped film containing inappropriate images of Barjona and 3 unidentified boys. Those were also found. Yuck. Can you imagine being the person that had to fucking develop that?
Oh, God. It's like, it would be like, oh, God. Like, each one's worse than the next. Like, oh, come on.
Not only for, like, the heinous acts that were probably occurring, but just a gross Barjona. Sick. No, thank you.
Is he sitting on a kid in this one? What the hell's happening?
Is that a couch? Is that a couch? No. Or maybe it's the kids all sitting on him and he looks like a beanbag chair. Yucca. Squishy. Don't like it. Squishy. Sick. But let me tell you about the best thing that they found. The best worst thing. It's pretty horrible, but it's really delightful. If you're sick, like me. Police also found a book written in code, the code was later cracked, and it was revealed to be a cookbook. And the recipes that were contained in this cookbook were some delightful recipes like little boy pot pie and French fried kid and little boy stew, which sounds like a nursery rhyme. Little boy stew. Oh, what? They did a luminol test and found evidence in his garage of scrubbed blood that was scrubbed with bleach, and they found a piece of wood that was struck with a meat cleaver, like it was used as a cutting board. And they also found like a name written in blood with the luminol test that matched the name of a boy who was strangled in New Hampshire in 1973. But after doing more research, they think that the theory is that he killed poor Zachary Ramsey and he cooked him. He did hold some cookouts for the neighbors, and he served deer burgers. Yeah, he served deer burgers. He claimed to have like hunted, killed, butchered the deer himself. He did not have a hunter's license. I do not imagine him being able to do any of that on his own. He didn't own a gun. There was no evidence that he ever hunted a deer and did all this himself. And one of the neighbors even said it tasted a little funny.
Oh, so do you think the neighbors were ever made aware of the fact that it might not be a deer burger?
How do you like your human? Medium rare, please. With cheese, don't forget. Ooh, I'm having burgers for dinner tonight. This is depressing. Also, his credit card records showed that he stopped buying groceries for an entire month after Ramsey disappeared.
He had to be eating something.
Yeah. People. He was eating people.
Okay, first of all, why... this guy really thought he was clever, right? Like, I'm gonna write this in code. I'll never figure it out.
Yeah, it's in the back. It's the cipher is literally in the back of it. It's just the thing where like every letter is a number. It's all
A1, B2.
Yeah.
And then why is it all little boys? Because it's like little boy stew, little boy pot pie, little boy.
The list was all boy names. So they found like a whole list of boy names and all that stuff. So he preferred male meat.
Male meat.
Yikes. Oh. And then, so, I don't know, man. So he used to have a room
on them? Is that like him like...
I don't know if he sat on them.
Like tenderizing.
Tenderizing. He's tenderizing them.
Get this one.
Yeah. So I guess he used to have a roommate, which is really surprising to me. And the roommate said that at one point he had seen a pair of bloody gloves and some soiled boys' clothing that matched the description of Ramsey's at their apartment. Cool. Nice job doing some due diligence there, roommate.
Maybe we could have reported that, perhaps.
Just saying, he's like, oh, now that you mention it.
It was weird.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird. I saw the exact description of a missing boy's clothing covered in blood in our apartment, but I just figured that the 400-pound man was hanging on to some little boy clothes for fun. Funsies. It was an art project. Like, what?
Do you think he was also eating, like, the deer burgers, and maybe he...
I don't know, maybe. I mean, your roommate. Sometimes you share meals with your roommate. He also was so dumb that he would, like, talk about Ramsey after his disappearance. He would, like, bring him up randomly. And he would say things like, nobody's ever going to find him because he's been chopped up and probably scattered in different places. Police also found hair that resembled a human's inside NBJ's meat grinder.
Oh, that's just unsanitary.
That is horrible.
Horrifying.
Yuck. You don't even take the hair off?
Just grind it all up. They'll never know. It's a little fine.
Sick little thigh meat with like hairy thigh meat. Like nobody wants that. But they also found 21 bone fragments belonging to a boy between 8 and 13 years old in his yard. And the house pipes could not be examined because neighbors who moved in after he had moved out had to change the pipes because they were constantly being clogged. Yuck. Yucka, 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 yuck.
Well, I just thought of something really gross.
Tell me.
So if the boy was between, 8 and 13, it may not have been hair from his head.
Oh, sick. Little ball hair burger. You don't want that? Little testicle special? Sick.
Montana mountain oysters?
God. It's disgusting. That's the sound you make after you eat one of those burgers. It's just like, it's like in the back there. Just one. Sick.
There's one hair always in that back there.
It's always one. And then you just literally forever. No amount of drinking water or stuffing your finger back there. Get it out. And it literally lives there for the rest of your life. You will constantly remember that time that you had a ball hair in the back of your fucking throat.
It just hangs there like
like on the hangy ball of the back of your throat, and it's like it recognizes the shape, so it's like, oh, I live here. So they figured out that the bones in the yard were not Ramsey's, they were somebody else's. They belonged to somebody else. Great. The worst part about this is after NBJ was arrested, Ramsey's mother refused to believe that he was dead, and because there was no evidence of his body being found, and she literally said that she would defend NBJ if he was brought to trial for his murder.
Well, I guess if she didn't think he was dead, then he couldn't be murdered, but I mean...
So, yeah, this was before he was arrested. I guess I totally missed that part of the story, but it doesn't matter. She refused to do it because she didn't want to believe that her kid was dead, right? So if she went and testified against him, then... Or if they brought him to trial for his murder, then he would be dead. So they actually dropped the charges for Ramsey and started focusing on other possible victims.
I can't believe they dropped the charges.
They had no actual physical evidence of Ramsey, like DNA, and they had no evidence of his...
They had the clothing.
Nope. The roommate said he saw the clothing. They didn't actually find the clothing.
So it was all circumstantial. So
yes, everything is circumstantial, yeah. So they started focusing on other possible victims. In one of the lists, his many boy lists that he had, 2 names belonged to some boys that lived in the same apartment building. And they were also in some of those pictures. So one of the boys said, yep, terrible things happened. That was us. And the other one actually visited NBJ in prison and was like, he's my friend, and nothing ever happened. So, little Stockholm syndrome going on there. Not Pam. So they used that. They charged him with sexual assault, aggravated kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, his titties. And then he was convicted and sentenced in 2002 to 130 years in prison without possibility of parole. But on April 13th, 2008, NBJ was found dead in his cell from a heart attack related to his fat ass. Maybe his roommate murdered him because he was trying to sit on him. Can you imagine if he was like, I want top bunk?
Roommate's like, no.
Squished yet again. Another victim squished. The whole story is so wacky and wild, but good lord. He had a cookbook. I wonder if he could get it published. There's like really fun little drawings in there too. There's like Bugs Bunny and like things in the cookbook. Yeah, like little, it's really wild. But yeah, doesn't everybody want a recipe? Like I can never find a good recipe for barbecue kid on Pinterest.
It's tough. And French fried kid, impossible.
Impossible. Nobody knows. Only the French. Yuck.
Oh my god. So this guy, you know what? Dying of a heart attack, that was just too good for him. Like, honestly.
I wish that we could have crushed him to death. I think that would have been a fun. Yeah.
Just like a bunch of other prisoners just sat on him.
All of them.
Crushed him. Or just kept jumping on him. Like in WWE. Like,
off the ropes. Off the rope. Get up. Ah! John Cena. John Cena's like, you can't see me. Here I come. Oh, John Cena can be on the show.
So he was never actually convicted for murder then?
No, because they could never, there was never enough corroborating as evidence.
The human hair in the meat grinder wouldn't be...
But they could never match it to anything. So, sucks. I guess the lesson here is if you're gonna kill people, you gotta eat them.
Eat them.
All of them. Not Jeffrey Dahmer style where you keep some of them. You gotta eat them all.
Share with the neighbors.
Yeah. Have a barbecue.
I'm still thinking about the neighbors. I wonder if the cops were hey, should we say anything or no? Maybe no.
Imagine being 10 years later and you're like, let's look up that fat fuck and see if we just read about it a little bit. And it's like, he fed his neighbor's deer burger. And they're like, what? What? That's why every deer burger I've had has never tasted like that.
Can you imagine? And you'd realize, oh my god, I might have had a kid burger.
A fucking boy ball burger.
I don't even know what to say about this.
No, you can't.
I mean, granted, he finally got 100 and something years. I mean, it sucks. So they just didn't have more evidence to do more to this guy,
Yeah. It sucks that they didn't just keep him in fucking prison when they had him. I don't know. There's a lot of fails here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fails here, but thanks, Belushi. Detective Bill Belushi. He's the real hero. He's the real MVP of this.
He's the real dick out of the story.
He's the number one dick in this story. Number one dick. Here's his trophy right here. Number one dick.
Of all the dicks, he's the best. Best dick on the force.
Does anybody have Bill Belushi's number?
Crazy story, man.
I know, it's really wild. We had to talk about it.
The cookbook alone.
What do you think the cookbook was called?
Boner Appetit? I don't know.
Oh my god. This is so good. That's way better than anything that I could think of. Now I'm mad. I was all my brain was going, the joy of cooking with just a little tiny kids underneath it. That's damn it. I got nothing else.
There's nothing you can say about this guy. It's just one of those cases that just leaves me kind of speechless. And that doesn't happen very often. I can usually find something to say. And this one is just kind of it's just a travesty on so many different levels that
it is a failure of the system. It is pure, it just shows you how easy it was to commit a crime in 1970 because the system was so flawed, right? So it was just a complete failure of the system.
Right. And Massachusetts, fucking Massachusetts, get your shit together. We give you probation, but you got to get out. Go to Montana. Let them deal with you.
Go home to your mother. Get out. That's it. We don't want to see a face around here. And all I can picture is like him trying to come back to Massachusetts, but there's just 3 bro dudes with like Red Sox hats on and like baseball bats, like waiting for him at the border. Like, nah, dude. We said get the fuck out. We meant it. Mm-mm. Take those titties somewhere else. Get out. Well, that's the crappy story of Nathaniel Bar Jonah and the cookbook of kids. It's awful. If you like what you saw, take those dangerous big old floppy titties and hit the like, subscribe button and ring that bell. And if you don't like what you saw, you'll have every right to not like it because it was really messed up, man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for more drunken adventures with 2 now vegetarian whores. Get out. Goodbye.
He'll eat a carrot.